Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Foreman community demo. If you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to up your video quality because the default is not great for our screen sharing. If you have any questions, we're on IRC, the Foreman, on Twitter, or on the YouTube live chat. We have a pretty busy demo today. We have some updates and then all kinds of improvements to Hammer, Ansible, remote execution, some UI changes as well. The first thing is 1.17, our first release candidate is out. It was released 2 days ago. Thanks for everyone that was working on this to get this ready on time. Please go try it out. Open bugs, send us comments and questions. Among other things, this version has the new UI with vertical navigation. Those of you who have been watching the last few demos, we've seen it a few times. So now it's in version 1.17. We also have the community survey out for 2018. It really helps us to get your comments on this. It's only about 5 to 10 minutes, and all of the questions are optional, so you can answer whatever you like, whatever is relevant for you. The link will be on the YouTube comments. It's also on Discourse and in last month's newsletter. And this really helps us to know how we're doing and what to work on next. We had some conferences lately. We had DevConf in Brno, and then FOSDEM in Brussels, and Config Management Camp in Ghent right after that. I know it was great for me to meet some of the users face-to-face, to get an opportunity to talk to everyone about what they're working on, hear all kinds of talks, new plugins that maybe I did, some of them I haven't even seen before. And also we had a great hack day at the end of Config Management Camp. We got a lot of people, some good discussions over there. Actually, some of the people that participated and gave talks are here today. So maybe they have some comments. Marek, you want to add something?
Yeah, it was quite busy week, or actually 2 weeks. All these conferences, we had a booth everywhere. So we had a demo hardware. We were presenting what we have, and some of that great stuff you will see on today's demo. Yeah, I think it was pretty successful everywhere.
Daniel, you want to add anything?
Nothing, just thanks to everyone who came, and also especially to the people who stayed for the Foreman construction day. At least for me, it was really great to understand how some people are using the Foreman Ansible plugin, and how can we make some improvements to that plugin in the future. And yeah, just thanks to everyone who came to the booths. We actually, I think, learned a lot from your experiences using Foreman, and I'm sure we're going to take that into account for the next releases. Also, if you didn't come to the booth or to any of these conferences, we have a community survey on our website. Please fill it in so we know what you want for the next Foreman.
Thanks. Sean, do you want to add anything else?
No, not really. Just a great time meeting everyone. So thanks everyone again.
So let's start with our demo. We're starting with Martin, nil values in Hammer.
Hi. During my short demo, I will show you how to unset values or attributes on resources in Hammer. If you want to unset some attribute using API, you just send nil in a update request, but this was not possible to do in Hammer because we had no alternative to send nil values through CLI. So this has changed now, and I'll show you how to do that. For our demo purposes, I prepared a host group called demo host group, which is shown on my screen. And we will try to remove the description and domain, which is related resource. So to remove common attributes like descriptions, you will just send nil placeholder to that attribute. For example, I have hammer update named demo ig description nil, and this nil on the CLI with the uppercase letters will be replaced by nil value in the API call. If we list the host group, we can see that the description was removed. The same works for related attributes. So, for example, if I send domain to nil, it will do what's expected. The thing is here that you can use either a domain, which is domain name, or domain ID. It doesn't matter if you use either of them. So I'll remove the domain. And you can see that the domain disappeared. It's unset in the host group now. The last case that was not shown yet is when you by any chance want to have text nil in some of your attributes. So I'll update the description to text nil. And to do that, I'll need to redefine the placeholder for nil, which I'll do by setting environment variable hammer nil to something else, say null. And you can see that the description is set to nil, so the placeholder was not replaced with the nil value. And that's all for me.
Thanks, Martin. I don't see any questions so far, but that seems to be very useful. Let's continue. Mark has a few things to show us today: notifications with remote execution and highlight on table rows. Mark?
All right, so I'll start with the smaller one. So as I mentioned already, we had a booth with demo hardware on all of the conferences. And when I was demoing stuff around remote execution, I figured out that there's one usability thing that we could improve. If you look at this page, which is job templates, part of the demo, what I was showing is you search for a specific template, and then you go and need to follow that row and actually click on the run button, right? Maybe it's not that visible in here because I have the font enlarged, but if I go to 100%, it's like finding the name in here in the list and then using the mouse cursor to actually go on that line and find the run button, which, as you can imagine, that was pretty painful, and I misclicked a lot of times. And so I ranted about that, and luckily there was Ohad next to me who heard that and actually sent a fix. So we now have a hover effect on the on tables. So now if I go to a different table, you can see if I hover on the row, it's highlighted. So that's my suggestion. If you don't like something, just rant on RC channel or rant through Redmine issues, and maybe someone will fix that. So Ohad actually fixed that. It was only fixed in core. So right now in Nightly's, all tables have this hover effect. And I continued from there. So I actually sent a pull request to every plugin because all plugins had to change as well. So I sent pull requests to all that I know about, including those that I learned about on the configuration management camp. So I sent pull requests to the Foreman monitoring Foreman data center. So it's also good if you're visible and speak up about your plugins, you might receive some pull requests from us. So this has been fixed. If you want to follow which plugins were updated, there's this issue in Redmine. Basically, for every plugin, I did a copy of this issue. So there are still some that needs to merge the pull request and do a new release, but this will be part of Foreman 1.18. So if you're a plugin maintainer, I would suggest you look at pull requests and merge them. The only plugin that I didn't send pull request for was Catello. And the reason is when I looked at their tables, they already had this highlighting of rows on hover. So it was no need to do any change in there. So that was one thing. I'll continue with the second thing. So what I wanted to show in here is now when we actually can easily choose the template we can run because we have this hover effect, I can demonstrate this. So another thing that was annoying in remote execution is that if you want to run some job which can take some time, for example, it will sleep for 10 seconds and then echo something. Or if you schedule that into future, so let's say it would run during the midnight, well, I need to also choose the host on which I'll demo that. So let's say, host. Now, if I submit the job, if I want to see the result, I would need to wait until I get the result in here, right? But usually you want to continue working in Foreman, or especially if you schedule the run at midnight, you want to probably know that the job has finished. You want to be notified basically about the status. So we added a notification because we have this functionality in here already. So after the job succeeds, I should be notified about that. So let's give it just 1 or 2 seconds. And I hope that the red color here or red dot will appear. Hopefully. By now, I think it should already appear. It was 10 seconds, right? So let's see. So it succeeded, and I don't see the notification yet. Interesting. Oh, maybe I probably know what I switched to a different organization meanwhile. But anyway, you would see a red dot in here, and as you can see, we have notifications for previous runs. So basically, the idea is that every job that I execute, and now we got the notification, so it took a bit more time. So now you can see it appeared in here. I also have a link to the job detail. So if I click on that, it should redirect me to that specific job. So I see the result of that. Yeah, and as I said, the idea is that you get one notification for each job run. So if you run one job on 10 hosts, you wouldn't get 10 notifications. You would get single notification for that. One more thing to keep in mind, so far, it only allows you to get the notification if the job is successful. There's one technical limitation we are working on. So on failure, you wouldn't be notified that the job has failed. We would like to fix that soon as well. So far, we get only notifications for successful runs. And more upcoming work, I would like also to make this menu for the links customizable per remote execution feature. So for example, I don't know if OpenSCAP uses that for some remediation run, you could customize it so you would see another link in here to go to the OpenSCAP detail page, for example. So that's planned for future. And I think that's it.
Thanks. We don't have any questions yet, but it looks like someone is about to write a question on IRC, so we'll get back to that later. It might be because of the YouTube delay. So let's move to Daniel about updates in Foreman Ansible.
Okay. I think I'm sharing the screen now.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. So last week, before going to the config management camp and FOSDEM, we released Foreman Ansible 2.0, and we got a lot of feedback there. So we're going to release a new version with some of the feedback that we got as soon as possible. the documentation is already here. It's on theforeman.org/plugins. So you just go to documentation, then plugins, then popular plugins, Ansible, then the 2.x button. It will take you to the 2.x series of Foreman Ansible documentation. A few things have changed. Well, the documentation has been reworked a little. Some users came and told us, well, I don't understand how to set up the callback, or maybe they didn't understand how exactly it worked. So I tried to make that more clear here. And also, a few new features are documented here. You may check it out at this page again. One of the most important changes that we've made on Foreman Ansible is that it now relies on remote execution. And the main reason why it relies on remote execution on the Foreman remote execution plugin, it is because the remote execution plugin already has a ton of options, like scheduling jobs, providing concurrency options, and so forth, that we just didn't have in Foreman Ansible. We could only run roles, look at an awful tasks page, and that was it. So now, if you have assigned, let's say, some tasks to your host, like in this case, for those not familiar with Foreman Ansible, you can go to the edit page of a host, or actually when you create the host, that also works. And in the host form, sorry for the slowness, there's an Ansible roles tab here, which shows all the roles that you have. More info about that in the documentation again. Anyway, this host has just one role. Previously, you would just click on here, and it would take you to a Foreman tasks page. Now you click on it, and it's triggering a remote execution job. So when you click on it, sorry, my development environment is kind of broken. I think it didn't load JavaScript on this page. Okay, should be fine now. So yeah, it takes you to the remote execution page where you can see the output of every job invocation live. Job invocation in this case, it would be what actually the actual playbook run, and you would be able to see. I just clicked on here, by the way, on the table here. You can click on the name of the host, and it takes you to the live output from Ansible. As you can see here, it's updating, it's running the role, and it just finished. So I suppose we'll be seeing this here momentarily. There is some other information on this page, like which hosts did this apply to, and if you run it on multiple hosts, it also shows up here. And also there is this tab where it shows how the playbook looked like for every host you run it on. So if you run it on multiple hosts and your playbook has different conditions for different hosts, it would show you here how it looks like. Anyway, so that's for Ansible roles. Now, another thing we added now that we are able to leverage remote execution for Ansible is that we can go to hosts, we can go to job templates, and in here we would be able to set to create Ansible playbooks. So this means that, for instance, I have a playbook here, and by the way, on the 2.0 version, we only provide the Ansible roles, running Ansible roles playbook, but this week or early next week, I plan to make another release with all of the playbooks that we have in here. Anyway, I have a playbook here, for instance, installed from Git. As you can see, it's just like any regular playbook. The only slight difference is that the first line always contains hosts all. We'll see why in a moment. But anyway, the rest is just like that. It just takes, it uses variables in the Ansible format. So you have this variable here called get repositories, and you have this variable, called get repositories and also location. So if I give it a URL, it would copy this URL to this location with git clone. You can, as you did before with Foreman Ansible, you could set git repositories here, and then maybe here get the HTTP URL. Or you can also use remote execution to provide the location and git repositories parameters. So in case you set those parameters in here in the page, in the job as job inputs, that's how they're called. You can go to this page, click on run, and then you will be prompted for these parameters. It's actually quite a lot of options that you can, quite a lot of things that you can do with job template inputs. So anyway, I'll give you an example here. So I just write a search query for the host that I want here, then the location. So let's say it's the Ansible roles, and let's say that I want to clone, I don't know, this repository. And if you have used remote execution in the past, you probably know about this, but in case you haven't, know that you can also schedule job invocations for these Ansible playbooks in the future, or a recurring execution every day, and so forth. There are many other options that you may take advantage of thanks to remote execution. So now we click on submit, and we get to a very similar page to the one we got before when running the Ansible roles, which was this one. And we have this page here. Okay, so it should be loading. Sorry, it should be loading the results of this in a moment. We can see here the location, which is the user input that we provided, and the Git repositories input as well. So I clicked on here, I open it in this tab, and in here we should see also the live output. Okay. So yeah, it's still gathering facts. Git repositories is undefined. Okay, I need to check what happened. Maybe I wrote that template wrong or something. But basically, that's the gist of it. And also, in addition to Ansible variables, you can definitely write your own any ERB code. Sorry, for some reason JavaScript is not loading every now and then on these pages on my dev environment. Okay, just a second.
If you need, we can move on and return to you to demo that template again.
Okay, it's literally 30 seconds what I need. Just this one. Damn. Okay. Okay, it doesn't really matter. The point is that you can also write ERB on these templates, not just Ansible variables in this format. So if you want to write some ERB here, you can. We'll be updating the documentation with some default templates that we're gonna add for the next edition of the next version of the plugin, and also a new reports format that hopefully makes it more readable. And I think that's all I got.
Thanks. I don't see any questions right now. I do see some. Oh, wait. We just got questions. Are there any plans to merge remote execution and Ansible plugins? I don't think so. Daniel, do you know otherwise?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
If there are plans to merge remote execution and Ansible plugins.
No, I don't think there are any plans of doing that, although effectively, if you are using Foreman Ansible, right now you will need to install Foreman remote execution as well, because otherwise, I mean, you could get reports and you could get facts from the callback, but running Ansible playbooks or running the Ansible roles for a host, that will not work without remote execution. So we are not merging the plugins, but in reality, you need them both in order to run jobs through Foreman.
Thanks. I see some positive comments. And Mark, you had a question?
Yeah, just one more question. I saw that you had a colored output in the Ansible run. So does that mean that also remote execution provides color now?
Yeah, sorry, my bad. So let's go to here. Yeah, if you have any output from your Ansible runs or your SSH scripts through remote execution, you may run also SSH scripts in case you are not familiar with the plugin. Anyway, the point is, if that output contains the color codes that you can write on SSH scripts, not sure how to describe it, but it's usually like / whatever, some bash scripts contain these color codes. Most of the colors will be displayed in here. We actually made a table for these colors by hand, so we are certainly not catching them all, but hopefully it should highlight the most important information that the author of the SSH script wanted to. So yeah, this is more or less how it looks like. Also here.
Thanks. No more question at this time. Moving to Adam about passwords in remote execution.
So, hello, I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, great. So I'd like to present a feature which was merged into remote execution last Wednesday, I think, and it's support for password-based authentication in remote execution. Historically, the only supported method was public key authentication, and it was extended to allow password-based one. So here I have a job which just prints something to the screen. And if I open the display advanced fields, there is a field password. In there, I can enter the password, which is used when the connection is being opened. So let's hope I wrote it right. And when I submit the job, here I can see at the SSH server that it accepted a password, not a public key, a password. So it works. Another thing which was added as part of this initiative is support for passphrase protected public keys. So if I try to log into that server from the console with the key, we can see that it asks for a passphrase. I'll cancel that. We can see that the connection was closed. So if I rerun the job and fill in the private key passphrase, it should run as well. And we can see that the public key was opened and accepted by the server. So that's working as well. Another thing added was that one can specify the password not only as a parameter of the job, but also as a host's parameter, the same way as a remote execution SSH user is set. So for example, if I go here, I can set remote execution SSH password and fill it in, mark it as hidden. Now, if I rerun the job, I even don't have to fill in those fields. And if I run the job, I can see the password was accepted, that it was taken from the host's params, and it works this way. It can also be set on the host group level, and I think even on global level, if anyone would want to do that. Another thing to note, if one fills the password through the job invocation form, it is kept by the job invocation until it's no longer needed. That means if you run a one-off job, the password is kept only until the job finishes. If you schedule the job to start in the future, the password is again kept until the job finishes. And if you set up recurring execution, the password is one execution happens, then it passes the password to the other one and removes it from the first action. So that's how it works for recurring actions. And that would be about it.
We have a question on IRC. How are the passwords stored and in which format?
Foreman has support for encrypting fields of models. So the password is encrypted and stored in the database in a column in the job invocation table. And when the job invocation finishes, it's removed from there completely.
Thanks. I don't see any other questions right now. So let's move to Sebastian about report origin and scanner.
Okay. What I'm going to show you is a new field in the reports table, which is the origin field. And we came to add that through another PR, which is basically improving the view of the reports in Foreman Ansible. And to provide the origin fields and to set it, we also introduced something called report scanners. They're just simple classes. This is the one which is in core. And it simply provides a scan class which gets the report as well as the raw logs. It then can go over the logs and inspect them. And in this case, it just looks for the source puppet in the first log and goes on and sets the origin to puppet. The save is not here. This will happen in the creation process in the reports importer. There is also a report scanner now for Ansible, which will be merged soon. And this also includes the improved view of Ansible reports. The way you register the report scanners is simply by providing the module and class in the registration process of the plugin. Another thing that will be merged soon based on that is the it's the sync interval, which will then allow us to specifically set timeouts for reporting for specific reporters like OpenSCAP or Ansible and Puppet, and say these hosts can take up to 24 hours to report back. And that's it for me.
Thanks. I don't see any questions now. Moving to Tomasz about searchable fields in API docs.
Hello, today I will present you a small improvement in our API documentation. Prior to this change, if users wanted to use our API for searching items, they had to guess what the scoped search searchable fields are, because in the API we use the same syntax as in the UI. So the only way how to find out what fields can be used for filtering resources was to go to the UI, try to write the query here, and then copy it over to your console and fire the request there. So with my change, it is no longer necessary. You can read about what are the searchable fields directly in the API documentation. So all the index actions from now on contain section about search fields, which list all the fields that you can filter by with their type if it's available, and with possible values if it's type of enum, and also they're available. This is at the moment this has been added only to the core, so you can't find it in any of the plugins, but it's quite easy to edit. Let me show you, for example, the users controller here. So this is the standard API documentation, and you can add this section just by adding this function that actually automatically fetches all the information from the active record model user in this case, and adds it to documentation. So if you want to add such information into resources of your plugin, you should be able now just add this below your API documentation in the controllers, and it should start working right away. So that's about it from my side.
Are there already issues open for some of the plugins? Are there plans to start fixing this in plugins soon?
No, no issues are open yet.
Okay, thanks. I don't see anything else. So Sean, moving to you about autofocus on the search bar. You're still muted, Sean. We can't hear you if you're talking. Okay, Sean, while you fix this, we have another question from the YouTube live chat. Will the searchable field docs be parsed by Hammer CLI and appear in Hammer help? Tomasz, did you hear the question?
No, I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Will these searchable field docs be parsed by Hammer CLI and appear in the help section in Hammer?
Yeah, that's the plan for the future, but it's not implemented yet, but definitely something we want to do.
We also have another question on IRC. Why not automatically adding it to the API based on resource type?
Cool. Yeah, I saw this question. It's from Tomer. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't understand what he means exactly, but Tomer, I will reach to you and we can talk about it offline.
Okay, let's try Sean again. Sean, can you try to talk? Okay. I think we'll have to keep Sean for next demo. So that's it for today. Thanks to the participants. Thanks for everyone watching, and see you next time.